Welcome back, everybody. Today we're tackling a topic that honestly doesn't always get the best press. Solitude.
Yeah.
We've got a really interesting collection of research and personal stories that actually challenge the idea that being alone automatically means you're lonely.
Right.
In fact, our sources suggest there might be some, hidden benefits
Yeah.
to those times when we're on our own.
It is really interesting how often solitude is presented, negatively, like it's something to avoid or something to fear.
Right.
But if you look back in history, there are tons of examples of people, thinkers, artists, leaders who actually use solitude to their advantage. They found inspiration and clarity in quiet moments.
That's such a good point. One of the articles we have even uses this phrase,
Yeah.
solitude as a catalyst for self-discovery.
Oh, interesting.
What do you think they mean by that?
Well, think about it. When we're always surrounded by other people, it's so easy to get caught up in what they think and, what they expect of us. We might even start to question our own beliefs or our own values without even realizing it.
Right.
Solitude, on the other hand, gives us a chance to step back from that external noise and, reconnect with that inner voice that we all have.
So it's almost like solitude is a chance to kind of hit the reset button
Yes.
on your thoughts and feelings, figure out who you are at your core.
Totally. It's like you're stripping away those external layers of influence and you're just getting back in touch with that authentic self.
I love that.
And there was actually this one study that we came across that found that people who spend time alone regularly actually have a stronger sense of self-awareness and a clearer understanding of their values.
That makes a lot of sense. But for someone who is used to, always being connected, the idea of spending time alone might feel, I don't know, daunting or even a bit scary. What advice do our sources offer for actually embracing solitude?
The key here, I think, is to be intentional about it. You're not just enduring this time.
Right.
It's an opportunity to really connect with yourself on a deeper level. Start small, maybe just 15 or 20 minutes of alone time each day.
Okay.
That could look like, a quiet walk in nature, reading a few pages in a book, or even just enjoying a cup of coffee without looking at your phone.
I really like that idea of scheduling solitude.
Yes.
Like with a meeting or an appointment. It seems kind of counterintuitive.
Right.
But it might be just the thing to actually make it happen.
Absolutely. And, as you get more comfortable with those shorter periods of solitude, you can gradually do more. One of the authors in today's material actually suggests planning a solo weekend trip.
Wow.
It doesn't even have to be far away, maybe just to a nearby town. It's a chance to get out of your comfort zone and really immerse yourself in that experience of being alone.
That's a challenge I think I could actually get behind.
Yeah.
But beyond self-discovery, the sources also hint at a connection between solitude and creativity.
Yes.
They even mention Einstein, Thoreau, and Steve Jobs.
Of course.
Are they saying that being alone actually makes you more creative?
Yeah. There's this fascinating neurological reason for this. When our minds are just constantly bombarded by all this external stimuli, social media, news, conversations,
Right.
it can be really hard for new ideas to come to the surface. Solitude, though, it gives our thoughts a mental space to wander, to make new connections. And, there's actually research that supports this. One study found that people who had some time alone before doing a creative task were actually more original and flexible in their thinking than those who didn't have that quiet time.
That's incredible. It makes you wonder, how much creative potential we're missing out on because we're constantly filling our time with noise and distractions.
Exactly. And, here's where I think things get even more interesting. Our sources also suggest that solitude can strengthen our emotional resilience.
Ooh, interesting.
This one surprised me at first, but the more I thought about it, the more sense it made.
I gotta admit, that connection wasn't immediately obvious to me either.
Yeah.
How does being alone make us more resilient?
Well, the sources point out that solitude helps us develop a stronger sense of self-reliance.
Okay.
We learn to be comfortable and find peace within ourselves instead of always looking for validation from other people.
So instead of looking outward for that feeling of security,
Yeah.
we're learning to cultivate it from within.
Exactly. And that inner strength is so important for emotional resilience. It's what lets us handle life's ups and downs, disappointments, setbacks, losses, without feeling completely broken.
I'm starting to see how solitude could help build that inner strength.
Yeah.
But this next point really surprised me.
Yeah.
The research actually claims that solitude can improve our relationships with other people.
Oh, interesting.
That seems counterintuitive.
I know.
How could spending time alone possibly make our relationships stronger?
It's all about perspective and setting boundaries. When we're always immersed in our relationships, it can be tough to see them clearly. We might fall into patterns of codependency or we forget our own needs. Solitude lets us step back, reflect, and appreciate those relationships with fresh eyes.
So it's about creating space
Yes.
to see our relationships more objectively and make sure they're actually good for us.
Exactly. And when we understand ourselves better through solitude,
Right.
we can be more authentic in our relationships.
Right.
We communicate better, we set healthy boundaries, and we avoid getting into resentment or dependence.
Wow, this is really making me rethink my relationship with solitude.
I know, right?
It's not about isolating ourselves. It's more like using those moments alone to recharge, reconnect with ourselves, and then build stronger connections with others.
Yeah, I love that. And speaking of recharging and reconnecting, one of the articles today emphasizes a link between solitude and mindfulness. They say that solitude can be a powerful tool for finding inner peace
Oh, yeah.
in our crazy, hyper-connected world.
That makes so much sense. It's like hitting the mute button on all the external noise and distractions so we can finally tune into our own inner voice.
Exactly. And in those quiet moments of reflection,
Yeah.
we can cultivate a sense of presence, awareness, and inner peace. It's about being comfortable, being alone with yourself, and finding joy and contentment in those moments when we're just instead of constantly doing. What's amazing is that solitude doesn't require anything special.
Right.
It's available to everybody, anywhere, anytime.
It's true. You don't need to book some silent retreat or escape to a mountaintop to experience the benefits.
Yeah.
It can be as simple as finding a quiet corner in your home
Yes.
or just taking a few minutes to, disconnect from all the screens.
Exactly. And as we get more comfortable with those smaller moments of solitude, we can start to build them into our routines a bit more.
Yeah.
One of the articles we're looking at today suggests taking mindful pauses throughout the day, even just stepping away from your desk, closing your eyes, and just focusing on your breath.
I like that. These little micro moments of solitude could be so beneficial.
Yeah.
Especially in a world that's constantly vying for our attention.
Yes.
But what about those of us who really thrive on social interaction? Is it even possible to find a balance
Oh, absolutely.
between solitude and being social?
It's not about, becoming a hermit or cutting yourself off from the world completely. The key is to find what works for you, a rhythm that lets you have both. One author we've been reading actually calls this finding your solitude sweet spot.
I love that. It's acknowledging that both are essential, solitude and connection.
Yeah.
It's about finding that balance that lets you thrive.
Exactly. And that balance might be different for everyone.
Yeah.
Some people need more solitude than others, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
It's about paying attention to your own needs and figuring out what feels right.
This whole conversation has been so eye-opening. I'm honestly walking away with a whole new perspective on solitude.
Yeah.
Instead of seeing it as something to be avoided, I'm starting to see it as this valuable tool for self-discovery, creativity, emotional resilience,
Right.
and even stronger relationships.
I'm so glad to hear that. And to leave you with a final thought-provoking question from one of the articles.
Okay.
What if we saw solitude not as a punishment or a sign of loneliness, but as a gift,
Oh, wow.
a chance to connect more deeply with ourselves and with the world around us?
It's a really powerful question.
Yeah.
And one that I think we could all benefit from reflecting on for a bit.
Yeah, I agree. It really makes us rethink how we see solitude and think about maybe, it's more valuable than we realize.
Yeah. This whole deep dive has honestly been a total eye-opener. I'm starting to see solitude not as something to avoid, but as a source of strength and renewal.
Yeah.
It's almost like we've been given a new way of looking at those quiet moments.
And what's so great about this new way of thinking about solitude is that it's available to absolutely everyone.
Right.
We don't need any special training or equipment.
Nope.
It's all about making that choice to carve out some quiet time in our lives.
So for anyone listening who's, intrigued by all this, but maybe isn't sure where to start, what would you suggest as a first step toward embracing solitude?
Start small. You don't need to jump into a silent retreat right away.
Right.
Or like disappear from the world for days.
Yeah.
Just start with a few minutes every day. Maybe 5 minutes of meditation before you start your day.
Okay.
Or 10 minutes of reading before bed. The important thing is to make it a regular thing, something you do intentionally.
Got it.
As part of your routine.
And then over time, as you get more comfortable, you can do it for longer.
Get back
Try
to-
different things. Maybe a long walk in nature.
Yeah.
Or exploring a new hobby on your own.
Totally. There's so many possibilities.
This has really been an incredible deep dive.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm leaving with a totally new appreciation for the power of solitude.
That's great.
And I hope our listeners do too.
I hope so too. It's been a pleasure exploring all of this with you.
Yeah.
And to leave our listeners with one final thought
Okay.
from the research we've been talking about today. Solitude isn't about being disconnected. It's about finding a deeper, more meaningful connection with ourselves and with the world around us.
That is a beautiful way to sum it all up. So to all of our listeners out there, I encourage you to embrace those quiet moments, Find peace in your own company and discover all those hidden benefits that are waiting for you in solitude. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.